Prologue. I wake to the sound of steel shifting and magic tightening in the air. My body feels heavy, like I've been dragged back from somewhere distant and unfinished. My thoughts lag behind my senses, the world slow to come into focus. When my vision finally clears, I see her. An elven girl stands a short distance away, frozen in shock. Her eyes are wide not with fear alone, but disbelief, as if she's staring at something that should not exist. For a heartbeat, neither of us moves. Then the world reacts. 4 warriors step in front of her instantly, movements sharp and practiced. Weapons are drawn. Power rises around them like a warning, magic snapping into place as they prepare to fight. I don't know their names yet, only the certainty in their stances and the way their attention locks onto me without hesitation. To them, I am a threat. I feel it then, that wrongness in the air. The world feels stretched thin, like it hasn't finished settling after being pulled too far, too fast. Reality hums under my skin, unstable, unfamiliar. And somewhere deep inside me, the green light stirs. Not flaring. Not attacking. Responding. I don't know what just happened. I don't know what force dragged me awake into this moment, or why I'm standing at the edge of another battlefield before I've even caught my breath. But I understand one thing with sudden, terrifying clarity. I've stepped into another story entirely. And this encounter right here, right now will decide whether we become enemies. Or something far more dangerous. Chapter 1: The Variable. I raise my hands slowly, palms open, every movement deliberate. Okay, I say, my voice rough but steady. Let's start with the only question that actually matters. No one lowers their weapon. What is going on? For a moment, no one answers. The 4 warriors hold their positions, tense but no longer advancing. The elven girl Risa, I'll learn later, watches me like she's trying to decide whether I'm real. Finally, they speak. Carefully. One piece at a time. They tell me what they saw. The ground splitting, not cracking like stone, but pulling apart like it had been stretched too far. The sky folding over itself, horizons overlapping, stars appearing where clouds should be. Magic surging without pattern or control, behaving as if the rules it followed no longer applied. 2 realities pressing together. Crashing. Fusing. As they talk, something cold settles in my chest. I already know. I just hadn't let myself say it yet. When the green light rewound time, when it answered my desperation and gave me a second chance, it didn't do so cleanly. It didn't rewind a single thread. It grabbed everything. I see it clearly now. The rewind wasn't contained. It tore through space-time so violently that the boundary between universes failed. What should have been separate folded together, overlapping until there was no clean line left. I did this. Not the demons. Not fate. Me. I exhale slowly, then lower my hands, not because the danger is gone, but because hiding the truth won't help anymore. So I tell them. Not as stories. Not with details meant to impress or justify. I give them summaries. Truth, stripped down to weight instead of drama. I tell them I was summoned. That a demon war followed. That I wield something called the green light, power tied to emotion, restraint, and consequence. That I loved someone named Tess. That my mother was there. That everything fell apart. That I rewound time to save them. And that the battle that should have ended everything, didn't. When I finish, the silence feels different. The weapons don't lower, but they aren't aimed the same way anymore. The hostility drains, replaced by something colder, sharper. Calculation. Unease. They no longer look at me like an enemy. They look at me like a problem. A contradiction. A living consequence. A variable that should not exist. I understand it instantly, because I feel it too. From this moment on, nothing belongs to one world anymore. Not land. Not magic. Not history. Not responsibility. Whatever comes next, war, alliance, disaster, salvation, it will be shaped by the choice I made when I refused to let the world end. I didn't just save the future. I broke the boundary that kept it contained. And now, standing at the intersection of two stories that were never meant to meet, I know one final truth. There is no going back. Only forward into whatever the consequences decide to become. Chapter 2: What Humanity Can Become. The battlefield doesn't wait for understanding. It never does. The fighting resumes in fragments at first confused skirmishes, shouted orders that no longer match the terrain or the enemy. Elves and humans still clash out of habit, out of fear, out of momentum. But something feels off, a pressure crawling along my spine that has nothing to do with magic. Then the second human force arrives. They don't come with banners. They don't chant spells or raise staves. They charge. At first glance, they look human: armor, weapons, familiar silhouettes, but the illusion shatters the moment they move. Their strength is wrong. Their speed is wrong. They hit elven shields hard enough to crack reinforced wards, tear through ranks with bare hands and crude blades alike. No magic. None. And yet they fight with a brutality I recognize instantly. Demons. Not in form but in behavior. Their movements are jagged, violent, stripped of restraint. They don't coordinate like soldiers, they hunt. They don't react to pain the way humans should. Limbs bend too far. Bodies twist through blows that should cripple them. Their eyes are empty in a way that makes my stomach tighten. This isn't power. It's corruption. And worse, they don't care who they're fighting. They turn on elven units, on fleeing civilians, on the other human army without hesitation. For a moment, the battlefield teeters on the edge of total collapse. Three forces. No rules. No allegiance. Just destruction feeding on itself. I feel the green light stir, sharp and alert. Not afraid. Angry. Then order. Spells cut through the chaos. The other human army moves. These humans are different. Disciplined. Focused. Their formations snap into place with practiced precision, magic flaring cleanly around them. Their commanders don't hesitate. They don't retreat. They choose a side. They strike the corrupted humans without mercy. Fire, lightning, binding spells, magic tears through the twisted ranks, ripping apart bodies that refuse to fall any other way. Where elven defenses falter, human casters reinforce them. Where corrupted units surge, coordinated spellfire stops them cold. The tide turns violently. The corrupted humans don't retreat cleanly. They scatter, screeching in rage and frustration, dragged back only by some unseen instinct when it becomes clear they can't win. Not here, not now. When silence finally settles over the battlefield, it feels fragile. Temporary. I lower my guard slowly, scanning the field, the bodies, the survivors. Elves and humans stand side by side now, uncertain but alive, staring at what they just fought. And then I notice the beasties. They're quiet. Not stunned by the fighting but by the scale of it. By the magic. The coordination. The sheer power it took to stop what they'd just seen. They aren't weak. But they understand now. This war doesn't belong to courage alone. It spans worlds. Magic systems. Species. Ideologies. What we're facing isn't just an enemy. It's a future where corruption can replace power, where humanity itself can become something unrecognizable. I meet Risa's gaze across the field. She understands it too. Whatever comes next, surviving it will require more than loyalty and bravery. It will demand growth. Alliances. Strength earned the hard way. The world didn't just merge. It escalated. And we are no longer fighting to win a war. We are fighting to decide what humanity, in any world, is allowed to become. Chapter 3: What survives the war? The battlefield does not fall silent all at once. It exhales. After the corrupted humans are driven back and scattered, there is no cheer, no sudden relief, only the slow realization that we are still standing. Elves lower weapons that have been raised for generations against human shapes. Humans do the same, unsure whether the quiet will last. Then leaders step forward. Not with guards interposed. Not with blades half drawn. Openly. The elven commanders meet the leaders of the human army in the open field, ash still drifting through the air. There is no posturing, no old pride left to protect. What stands between them is not history, but understanding. Neither side could have survived what came alone. The truth is spoken plainly. The good human kingdom pledges its magic structured, disciplined, refined through generations of warfare against threats their world had never fully named. In return, the elves offer what they have always guarded, knowledge of the land, ancient tactics shaped by forests that remember every footstep, and support that does not bend once given. This is not a treaty born of politics. It is survival made deliberate. Together, we move. The remaining corrupted humans are hunted down methodically, not in anger, not in vengeance, but with grim resolve. They are cornered where they hide, cut off from whatever force twisted them into something less than human. One by one, their resistance ends. When the last of them falls, the war that nearly shattered two peoples finally releases its grip. Peace settles slowly, cautiously. Not as celebration but as balance. I watch the alliance take shape in small moments. Elven scouts sharing terrain maps with human officers. Human mages reinforcing elven wards without being asked. Soldiers eating together in silence that feels earned rather than strained. This is more than a temporary pact. It is a foundation. The world has changed too much for isolation to survive it. I glance toward the beasties as they stand apart from the negotiations, watching with a seriousness I haven't seen in them before. They understand now what this moment means. What the battlefield revealed. Heroes alone will not decide what comes next. Not in a world where universes have merged. Not in a future where corruption, magic, and power cross boundaries without permission. What comes next will be decided by unity. By growth. By alliances strong enough to endure chaos itself. The war is over. But the story has only just widened. And whatever waits beyond this fragile peace will not be faced by kingdoms standing alone again. Chapter 4: When distance fails. With the war ended and the alliance holding, the world does something unfamiliar. It slows. Not completely, never that, but enough that my mom and I finally return to the work we once treated as theory. Back then, summoning across worlds had felt like staring at an unbreakable wall and wondering what it would take to shatter it. Now, the wall feels thinner. We work in silence at first, laying out the circle with a care that borders on reverence. Every line is precise. Every component chosen deliberately. This isn't desperation driving us anymore, it's understanding. The barrier between universes has changed since the fusion. I can feel it. The magic doesn't resist us the way it once did. It doesn't push back or strain like it's being forced into something unnatural. As we form the circle, the air hums softly, responsive rather than hostile. Light bends not violently, not tearing reality apart but yielding. For the first time, the spell listens. We focus on a single name. J.R. Thrush. No titles. No embellishment. Just the truth of who he is. The circle activates smoothly, mana flowing in controlled currents instead of surges. There's no backlash. No instability. No sense that we're doing something forbidden. The magic settles into place as if this outcome has been waiting for the right conditions. And then he's there. Standing in the center of the circle, solid and unmistakably real. Confused. Disoriented. Alive. My mom freezes. For a heartbeat, she doesn't breathe. Years of separation, of waiting and wondering, crash into that single moment. Then she moves fast, unguarded, crossing the space between them as if the worlds had never existed at all. JR barely has time to speak before she's holding him. I look away, giving them that moment, feeling something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was still tight. This wasn't power. This wasn't dominance or defiance. It was precision. Intent. I understand it then. What once required impossible force rewinding time, tearing space apart no longer does. The worlds aren't fully separate anymore. The rules that govern distance and impossibility have changed, quietly but permanently. This summoning worked not because we were stronger, but because the universe itself is different. When the moment settles and voices grow calm again, there's no celebration. No cheering. Just a shared understanding that something fundamental has shifted. If this was possible, then so are far greater things. And far greater consequences. As I watch my family reunited in a world that shouldn't have been able to hold all of us at once, one truth settles heavily in my mind. The fusion didn't just merge worlds. It rewrote what they are allowed to become. And whatever comes next will no longer be limited by the rules we once relied on to keep reality intact. Chapter 5: What Comes Home. The days that follow don't feel like an ending. They feel like learning how to breathe again. My dad takes in this world slowly. He doesn't rush to understand magic or politics or the strange mix of races that pass through the streets. He watches. He listens. He asks careful questions, the kind that tell me he's trying to place this reality somewhere solid in his mind. A place where it can make sense. I explain everything to him, not all at once, not with drama but honestly. The summoning. The war. The green light. The rewind. The fusion of worlds. Each piece lands heavier than the last, and I can see the shock deepen on his face as the scope of it settles in. Then I tell him I'm married. That gives him pause. And when I tell him he has a granddaughter, the silence that follows is different. Not stunned, full. Like something long missing has finally been named. Meeting her changes him. The moment he holds her, something in his shoulders eases, years of distance and worry dissolving into quiet joy. He doesn't say much. He doesn't need to. His expression says everything: loss acknowledged, but not allowed to define what comes next. What follows isn't dramatic. It's real. We sit together at tables that don't feel temporary. We share meals without watching the horizon for threats. Stories spill out naturally, some from Earth, some from Canthar, some awkward, some painful, some unexpectedly funny. Laughter returns in small, careful pieces, like it's testing whether it's still allowed to exist. And it is. For the first time since the worlds merged, the chaos fades into the background. Not gone. Not forgotten. Just quieter. I realize something then. Reality may be fractured. History rewritten. The future uncertain in ways I still don't fully understand. But this is proof. Proof that not everything broken stays that way. That even after wars, after loss, after impossible choices, some things can still be mended. And sitting there with my family whole in a way I once thought was gone forever, I know that whatever comes next, it will be faced not just with power or preparation, but with something worth protecting. Chapter 6: A Name That Stays. The evening is calm in a way I'm still learning to trust. We sit together without urgency, without plans laid out across tables or alarms waiting to sound. The light in the room is soft, warm, and my mom cradles the baby carefully in her arms, rocking her with a familiarity that feels earned rather than assumed. For a while, no one speaks. Then my mom does. "I've been thinking about a name," she says quietly. The words don't interrupt the moment they settle into it. She looks down at the baby, her expression gentle but steady. I keep coming back to the same one, she continues. Emily. She says it like she's been practicing it in her heart for a long time. It feels right, she explains. Soft, but strong. A name that belongs where I came from, and where we are now. She pauses, then adds, something that can grow with her. Hearing it out loud shifts something in me. Until now, everything has felt temporary, survived, repaired, held together by careful choices. But a name makes things real. It gives shape to the future instead of just reacting to the past. I watch the way my mom holds her. The patience. The instinctive care. The quiet devotion she never announces but lives out in every small movement. So much love, already poured into someone so small. She looks up at me then. Just one glance. Is that okay? She asks. I nod immediately. There's no doubt. No hesitation. Yeah, I say. It's perfect. Relief softens her expression, and she smiles down at the baby again. Hello, Emily, she whispers. And just like that, she isn't the baby anymore. She's Emily. The name settles into the room, into my chest, into the space where uncertainty usually sits. It doesn't erase the future's risks. It doesn't fix the fractures in reality or guarantee safety. But somehow, it steadies me. Because naming her makes the future feel reachable. And for the first time in a long while, that feels like enough. Chapter 7, A Day the World Allowed. We don't announce the break. There's no council approval, no strategic delay justified by maps or warnings. We simply go away from borders and battlefields, from alliances and fractured skies to a quiet stretch of beach where the world feels ordinary. For once. The sea is calm, rolling in gentle rhythms that don't demand attention. The sky is clear, uninterrupted by strange light or bending horizons. No alarms. No urgency tugging at the back of my mind. Just us. Emily sits in the sand, utterly fascinated, her small hands digging clumsily into something entirely new. She squeals when the waves creep close, then laughs when they retreat, as if the ocean itself is playing with her. My mom and dad watch her with soft smiles, the kind shaped by gratitude more than pride. Tess laughs beside me. It catches me off guard how light it sounds. Not forced. Not cautious. Just happy. I glance at her, and she meets my eyes with a grin that reminds me of who we were before everything became so heavy. There's no ceremony. No banners. No speeches. Just a small cake balanced on a blanket, shared food, sun-warmed air, and memories forming quietly around us. My dad insists on cutting the cake crookedly. My mom scolds him, smiling the entire time. Tess helps Emily blow out a candle she doesn't yet understand, and everyone cheers anyway. The world doesn't intrude. As the afternoon fades into evening, I sit back and watch it all, the people I love, the child we're raising, the peace that feels almost fragile in its simplicity. And I understand something clearly. Moments like this aren't escapes. They're proof. Proof of what we're protecting. Proof that the future is worth the effort, the sacrifice, the constant vigilance. Proof that even in a reality stretched thin by war and consequence, there is still room for joy. For this one day, the world allows us to rest. And that, somehow, feels like a victory all on its own. Chapter 8, What Holds. The sea goes silent first. Not calm, empty. I feel it before I understand it, a sudden wrongness in the rhythm of the waves. The water pulls back from the shore in one smooth, unnatural motion, dragging sand and shells with it, exposing stretches of beach that should never see open air. No one speaks. Then I look up. The wave rises in the distance, impossibly tall, its shadow swallowing the horizon as it races toward us with terrifying speed. This isn't weather. This isn't chance. It's the world misfiring, another reminder that reality is still unstable, still learning how to exist after the merge. Fear doesn't get time to settle. Instinct takes over. I step forward, planting my feet in the sand as the green light responds immediately, not explosively, not violently, but cleanly. It flows around us in a steady surge, wrapping the space we occupy like a living boundary. The ground firms beneath us. The air thickens, reinforced. The light doesn't shine outward, it holds. The wave hits. Water, wind, and force crash down in a deafening roar, sand whipping through the air, pressure slamming against the barrier with relentless weight. Tess pulls Emily close without hesitation, trusting me completely. My parents stand behind us, shielded by the same calm glow, untouched even as the world screams around us. The green light doesn't strain. It listens. I realize something in that moment, something quiet, but profound. I've changed. Since the universes merged, my control has deepened. The green light answers me more fully now, letting me draw on more of it than ever before without slipping into desperation or loss. And still, I know this is only a fraction of what exists. A surface level reach into something vast. The wave passes. Water rushes back into the sea. Wind dies down. The beach reappears, soaked and reshaped, but intact. When the silence returns, it feels earned. I let the green light fade slowly, carefully, until the world feels normal again, if normal still exists. This wasn't about strength. It wasn't about spectacle. It was about protection. About knowing when to act, how much to give, and when to stop. Proof that I'm learning how to wield the green light without letting it consume who I am. As Tess looks at me, Emily safe in her arms, I understand something clearly. Power isn't measured by how much you can unleash. It's measured by how much you can hold. And still remain yourself. Chapter 9: What endures? The sea doesn't calm. It darkens. The water churns violently, waves folding in on themselves as something vast begins to rise from below. The temperature drops. The air thickens with pressure. I feel it before anyone cries out, a presence so heavy it bends the surface of the ocean around it. Then the Leviathan breaks through. Its body coils upward from the depths, massive and ancient, water cascading from armored scales that look carved rather than grown. Each movement warps the sea itself, dragging currents into spirals that shouldn't exist. Panic ripples across the shore, sharp and immediate. I move before anyone can speak. I step forward, placing myself between the creature and the people behind me: Tess, Emily, my parents. The green light answers instantly, not surging outward, not flaring in rage, but forming tightly around me, precise and deliberate. This isn't a battle I can end quickly. The Leviathan strikes without warning, massive force crashing down in waves meant to crush and pull everything into the sea. I counter not with power, but with placement, redirecting pressure, reinforcing the ground, shaping the light into barriers that bend instead of break. The fight stretches on. Minutes blur together as the creature presses again and again, testing every weakness. I can't afford mistakes. Every lapse in focus risks everything behind me. I attack only when openings appear, striking joints, disrupting balance, forcing it back without ever letting my guard drop. My muscles burn. My breathing grows shallow. The green light holds, but only because I refuse to force it. I realize how different this feels from earlier battles. There's no desperation pushing me forward. No loss threatening to tear control from my hands. Just focus. Awareness. Resolve. The Leviathan adapts, its attacks growing more violent, more deliberate. The water rises, slams, recedes, returns. Each exchange costs me focus, every defense layered carefully on top of the last. But slowly the tide shifts. I exploit openings. Redirect momentum. Wear it down without overcommitting. The creature's movements lose precision, its strikes less coordinated. When it finally recoils, sinking back beneath the waves, it does so reluctantly, defeated, but alive. The sea settles. Not completely calm but no longer hostile. I remain standing as the green light fades from view, exhaustion crashing into me now that the danger has passed. My legs shake. My head swims. But I don't fall. Behind me, everyone is safe. That's what matters. This battle proves something important: not that I'm unstoppable, not that I can overwhelm anything that challenges me, but that I can protect. Through mastery. Through restraint. Through choosing control over force. I used only a fraction of what I carry. And it was enough. Chapter 10. What remains simple. When everything finally settles, the day finds its way back to what it was meant to be. The sea is quiet again. The sky holds. No alarms. No distortions. Just warmth, salt air, and the steady rhythm of waves returning to their place. It feels almost unreal how quickly danger can fade once it's gone. Emily sits in the sand, impatient in the way only a child can be. We'd almost forgotten the gift. I hand it to her at last, the stuffed animal she's been pointing at for weeks, the one she insisted on every time we passed the shop window. The moment she sees it, her eyes widen, light spilling across her face as if nothing else exists in the world. She grabs it with both hands and pulls it close to her chest, fingers curling tight like she's afraid it might vanish if she lets go. A delighted sound escapes her, something halfway between a laugh and a babble, and just like that, the weight of the day dissolves. Tess laughs softly beside me. My parents smile, watching Emily hug the toy with absolute devotion, completely unaware of how close the world came to tearing itself apart only hours ago. She doesn't know about waves that shouldn't exist, or creatures rising from the deep, or power held back by careful choice. She just knows she's happy. I sit there and watch her talk to her new companion, pressing it into the sand, showing it shells, explaining something only she understands. The simplicity of it settles something deep in my chest. No battles. No magic. No worlds breaking. Just a child enjoying a gift. And in that quiet moment, I remember again why I fight. Why I restrain power that could so easily overwhelm. Why control matters more than dominance, and protection more than victory. Moments like this don't announce themselves as important. They just are. And as Emily laughs at nothing in particular, holding her stuffed animal like it's the most precious thing in existence, I know with certainty. This is what everything else is for. This is what I will always protect.